The dawning of a new era in CSB sports.
We're so awesome that even our school wants us. You got to come on here. AllNoiseRadio.com, baby.
Bringing you a wide variety of topics in the world of sports.
Hockey, basketball, baseball, football. Get ready.
We work hard. We love sports.
The knowledge.
I just want to make you look bad, Ruggs, because you always make me look bad with your sports intellect.
The passion.
Hey, Jimmy, you're going to be the best-looking guy in the unemployment line, buddy. What a disgrace.
It's the Zuki and Ruggs Show on All Noise Radio.
Live from the CSB studios in Stratford, Connecticut, it's the Zuki and Ruggs Show, covering a wide variety of topics in the world of sports. I'm Ruggs, and I'm here with my partner Zuki, and we're here sitting in the center of the college basketball universe, right here in the great state, the nutmeg state of Connecticut.
Oh, it's good to be back, my friend. My throat's clear, my chest is clear, and most of all, my head is clear. And I tell you what, right now, we are the capital.
Let's go, Huskies.
The capital, that's right. Bleed blue, baby. We are the capital of college basketball, my friend. You know, the SEC can rule college football. We don't have any professional sports teams here. No disrespect to the Connecticut Sun of the WNBA. So I guess we do have one, technically. But we don't have any dominant sports teams here in Connecticut. But who needs a dominant sports team when you have 13 national championships since 1995? Your state university is 13-0 in national championship games. To quote Andrew Dice Clay, oh! So it's
pretty amazing. 13-0.
Amazing is putting it lightly. I mean, it's hard to even really put it into words. I'll say this about the women. It's something I said to you yesterday, Ruggs, and it's something I got to say on the air. I was sitting there after the UConn ladies just thoroughly dominated the Notre Dame Fighting Irish women, who were previously undefeated. If you would have watched that game, you know, if you knew nothing about college basketball and you watched that game and I told you, I said, hey, do you know both of these teams are undefeated? You probably would have looked at me and said, stop it.
Yeah, they look more like Notre Dame, but
yeah, oh.
had to get that shot in there on Muffet.
They're not. Oh, yeah. How about that soundbite, huh? If you think we're going to go out to dinner and, you know, that crap ain't happening. Yeah, that was a great little soundbite there. That actually gave the game a little juice between Gino and Muffin McGraw. Yeah, getting back to UConn. You know, when that game ended, and they showed the stat, and they said this is UConn's 5th perfect season. It hit me like a ton of bricks because I'm guilty of it, just like most people are. We take it for granted. We take for granted just what these ladies have accomplished throughout the last decade and a half. Players come, players go, but there's one constant that remains. UConn dominates, and they just, to be perfect, just say this aloud, 40-0. That's insane.
It is insane.
That's insane, and he does it. He hasn't done it only one time. 5 perfect seasons. They haven't all been 40-0. I think a couple of them were like 39-0. Yep. But okay, I mean, 39, 38-0, 40, big deal. Still, 5 perfect seasons. That is beyond fathomable. I mean, that's beyond comprehension. It's remarkable. It's astounding. Congratulations. I'm so proud to be a Connecticut resident. You know, when you watch something like that, you see the commitment to excellence that Gino Auriemma has. Just so awesome. I mean, he finds these players. I mean, you look at Brianna Stewart, you're like, gosh, this looks like an awkward kid. Look at this girl with her ears. And all she does is she's just the best player in the country. It just seems like every time Gino recruits a kid, you just know this kid is going to be the best player in the country. Even Stephanie Dolson. You watch Dolson, you're like, all right, well, she's a little chubby. She's only like the best center in the country. It's remarkable. Congratulations. 9 national titles since 1995. You know, you're talking about a span of almost 2 decades. It's wow. I mean, it's thoroughly impressive. So great job by Gino Auriemma. But that was the least surprising of the two, as we know.
Yeah.
I mean, as you said, you tell the story, Ruggs, about your ESPN women's bracket. You could tell everybody that was a funny story.
Yeah, I had did the ESPN bracket challenge for the men and women. Obviously, the men
Forget it.
was kindling pretty quickly, but the women's bracket, I only got 3 games wrong for the entire tournament. Was 96.5 whatever percentile.
Wow.
And I was in like 275th place or something. There was like 250 or 60 people that had perfect brackets.
Oh my God!
So it does show a little difference in the parity.
Yes.
Still, it's getting better slowly, but there's a big difference between the men's and women's game. It's not kind of that anybody can beat anybody else any given night kind of thing quite as much. Form holds a little bit more in the brackets. It's amazing. Warren Buffett would have been on the bread lines if he had done that $1 billion challenge with the women's tournament.
Oh, forget it. Well, he knew better. That's why he's a multi-billionaire. But that's a remarkable story that to hear that from you. But Ruggs, let's get to the women. It's not too much to discuss. It's just basically just a big pat on the back to the girls. Really remarkable. I mean, as I said, I think it ranks atop the list of greatest sports achievements of all time. I'm talking about the UConn Huskies, really from 1995 till 2014. That's 20 seasons. Yeah. I know I said decade and a half earlier. I'm sorry. It's more like 2. I'm losing track here of the years. They're going by so fast.
Well, my freshman year, if this lends any light onto that, at UConn was the perfect season with Rebecca Lobo.
Yeah, 95.
Jamel Elliott, Jen Rosati. So it has been a while.
Yeah, almost 20 years, yeah. I think it's right there, Ruggs. I know John Wooden and the UCLA Bruins, and rightfully so, get a lot of credit. They sit atop, with their 88 straight wins, which is also remarkable. But then you look at what Gino Auriemma's done. 88. This guy's got 5 perfect seasons on his resume. Yeah. It's really remarkable. I think it's one of the greatest sports achievements of all time.
I do too. And a lot of people will bring up what I mentioned earlier in the parity and how it's a lot easier to run a long winning streak in the women's game. But back when Wooden was dominating with UCLA and cherry picking the top players in the nation, there wasn't the amount of teams that there is now in men's college basketball that could compete and pull upsets. It was sort of similar to what the women's game is like now. There was a handful, maybe a little bit more than in the women's game, but you're not talking more than a dozen or so teams that really had legitimate sights on the national title.
Right.
He would have a much more difficult time, obviously, doing something like that in the modern college basketball era.
I agree. But just you know why I think it's just so impressive with UConn is the longevity of it. It's not like he had one run of 2 years, let's say he had one run of 5.
He didn't catch one special player that took him.
Like UNLV, with Tarkanian. He had a little, he had a span there of like 5 years where he put together some good teams and was able to win a national championship. And what did he win, 2 or 1? I think he won. Did he win 2?
No, he only got the one.
He got the 1. So he won a national championship, but but it was a flash in the pan. It really was. It was a flash in the pan. Then, of course, he got in trouble for stuff like that, and he ran to the NBA, which was the biggest mistake of his life. But anyway, I digress. And but what he's done, what Gino Auriemma's done in a span of 20 years, think about how many players have come and gone, and it's the same freaking story. UConn just wins. And I tell you, it's something I saw in that game, and I guess we'll get off the girls here. A minute to go, they're up by nearly 20, okay? The game's clearly over, and they're still playing defense. And Gino Auriemma is standing on the sidelines with his hands on his hips with a scowl on his face like, don't you quit.
Yep.
It's insane that they play from start to finish. Whether they're up by 20 or up by 2, they play the same way, and that's indicative of the coach. And so, great job by Gino Auriemma. Yeah. One question, Ruggs. It's a complete hypothetical, but what do you think about the idea of one day, maybe even it being now, that Gino Auriemma tests the waters of the NBA? I say it like this. I know it may sound sexist, but it's not meant to sound sexist. Everyone wants to talk about Calipari. Is Calipari going to go to the Lakers? Is Calipari going back to the NBA? How about a 9-time champion of women's college basketball, a man, says, you know what? Let's see what I got. Let me try the NBA. I got nothing else to prove in college.
Yep.
What do you think about that? You think one day he would ever try that?
I'll answer this from, whether he might do it and whether or not it would work is another issue. Having met him and talked to him in person, I think that personality, he could handle the job very well. You do fine with the personalities in the NBA, which is really, let's face it, that's as important as the coaching aspect.
Oh, yeah.
Going to his practices a couple of times and watching the drill sergeant at work, and that's why they win, is because his practices are just like textbook. They're the same every single time, and they are intense every single time. If he tried to do that in the NBA, there'd probably be some issues. These guys don't want to work that hard in practice. To quote AI, it's just practice, you know?
Yeah, right.
Right. That would have to change somewhat. He'd have to keep the intensity with and maybe become a little less rigid to be able to succeed. We've seen that before with college coaches that blow up in the league because they're not willing to change their regiment.
PJ Carlson.
Exactly.
We all know after them. Poor PJ. Yeah.
And he's a tremendous coach. PJ Carlson, knows more about the game and the nuances of playing than anybody, and just could not get it done as the head man in the league because of like what we just talked about.
I think he got a raw deal in Brooklyn last year too.
Yeah, so
I think so.
Gino's got the charisma to do it. He's personable. He can be one of the guys, blend in, be a player's coach, and if he could be able to do that and meld that in with his techniques and his principles, how to play defense, how to pass the ball. You want to talk about teaching kids, any gender, at any age, how to pass the ball when they're starting out. Watch the UConn ladies pass the ball. I mean, it was like surgery the way they cut Notre Dame apart with those passes, especially to the interior. I think he could be a very successful coach in the league if he could get that all together. Like I said, the one issue I would be worried about is how strict of a disciplinarian he is in his practices. And even, every coach is yelling and screaming on the sideline. I mean, you see a guy like Eric Spoelstra's pretty laid back, but for the most part, these guys are type A's. They're all over their players. That's expected during the heat of a battle in a game, but Auriemma is like that in practice too, even more so. He's actually calm during the games comparatively. Excellent point though, Zook. I had really not thought about it because, again, like he's never mentioned. Because I remember for years people were talking about Calhoun going, and I didn't think that was going to be a good idea. I think he did a great job staying the course and staying at UConn.
Well, maybe he should have stayed 2 more years.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, well, that's a great point, Ruggs. Great answer, and it's
good segue though there with staying 2 more years. I mean, we'll touch on it a little more when we get to the men's title game, but I know I was worried when Calhoun left. I thought the program was going to fall off quite a bit, and I know there's a couple of players that are the same, and now we got to see how he recruits for the next batch, the next class, but it's real reassuring to have Kevin Ollie. Now he's got this feather to go recruit some more players, because there was like you said with Tarkanian, and I mentioned it last week, you're worried about these one coach programs. They build up, have this meteoric rise, and then the coach leaves, and then you don't hear from them again.
Right.
And you worried that was going to be UConn's fate.
Yeah.
So this was an important title for a lot of reasons.
It sure was. It definitely was. UConn was in turmoil. The program was in turmoil, and really was the black sheep of the NCAA. Let's be completely honest. It was embarrassing to alum and fans alike to see what they went through, and I felt terrible for the players. I felt as though it was an injustice for the players to serve a sentence for previous players. I got to give credit to Shabazz Napier. The kid stayed the course. Now, of course, is he a lottery pick? No, he's not a lottery pick. Could he have been a late first round pick in the NBA? Sure, I think so. Especially last year, the draft was not deep at all. I think Shabazz Napier may have hurt his draft stock staying because this draft is going to be so deep this year as opposed to last year, so it may have actually hurt him in that regard. But I give the kid credit. He stayed. He had something to prove. He wanted to play in the tournament one last time, and he wanted to bring the program back to respectability. Just a great job by the UConn men. I'm beyond proud. I mean, it's as I said, it's hard for me to sit here, and I'm a man of many words. I can't put many words around this to describe the feeling and the emotions behind this. Without a shadow of a doubt, I'll ask you, Ruggs, but in my opinion, you ask me, out of the 4 national championships that I've seen the UConn Husky men win, this is by far the sweetest, if you will, the best one by far. I mean, in my opinion, it's just poetic justice for these kids and this program who were vilified and just, and made to hold a scarlet letter of the NCAA, while ironically enough, scumbags like John Calipari, who continuously break rules and ruin programs such as UMass. Why don't we go to UMass and ask them what they think about John Calipari? Or even Memphis. Why don't you go to Memphis, Tennessee, and ask them what they think about John Calipari? But the media and NCAA continue to glorify a bona fide cheater such as John Calipari.
I want to reward him with the Lakers job.
Yeah, even better. Yeah, send him there. Perfect. A perfect place for a phony like Calipari. They kind of go hand in hand. Him and Kobe can, they can hop, skip, and jump all through Hollywood Boulevard there. It's just, but getting back to my point, it's just poetic justice. I'm just so proud of this team. They stuck it to the NCAA. They had to sit there, Frank Wellman and the rest of them with their disingenuous smiles and hand the trophy to UConn. It pained them to do so.
Great.
Yeah, and I love the fact that the kids were trying to trample him. I wish they did. I'm glad that they trampled him and basically pushed him off the podium, like, get the hell out of here. Like, you really want to hand us this trophy. Just hand us the trophy. Don't say anything and leave. I would have, much preferred that. But just so proud of this team. A great run. God, where do you start with this team? You look at this team, I'll tell you a quick story of how much of an afterthought this team was to me personally. I was in Vegas, as many of you know, when I did the call in here, in the beginning of March. Folks, I went, I'll tell you right now, when Ruggs called me, folks, I was at the MGM Casino. Folks, I was right in front of the sports booking, okay? I was right there. I had the lines. I didn't even think about putting $20 on UConn to win the whole thing. I'm a UConn fan, a Connecticut resident, okay? I didn't even think, the thought didn't even cross my mind. Hey, George, why don't you just throw $20 on UConn? You're right here. Yep. I didn't even do it. That's how much of an afterthought they were to me, okay? And they had just gotten crushed by Louisville, okay, by 33 points. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, UConn? Oh, are you kidding me? And to be sitting here, on April 10th, and to be watching that game on April 7th, and to see them hoisting up a national championship, it's surreal. It's surreal. I was watching, like, this can't be real. I'm like...
Most of the experts did not pick them to win the first game. And with fairness, they
went to overtime.
They very nearly didn't get this far because they almost couldn't get out of the first game.
Yeah. For all intents and purposes, I'll be honest with you, they probably should have lost to St. Joe's. If it wasn't for it was Daniels, I think, that made that three.
Daniels hit a big three.
He hit a big three that made it 67-64, I think.
Brema had that big rebound.
Yes.
And then got fouled on the putback.
Yes.
And a guy who does not shoot free throws very well.
He knocked
them in when they needed to. Got it to overtime. And in overtime, they killed them.
Yes,
they dominated St. Joe's.
Yes, they did.
So the last 5 minutes of the game in overtime was pretty much dominated by UConn.
I thought they were done. I thought they were
had
done
a
against St. Joe's.
long road to come back in that game, and they could have folded it up and just said, all right, it's not going to happen.
It's remarkable.
But when you have seniors,
it
makes a big difference.
Senior leadership does matter, and that's where experience comes in as well. And
freshmen will pack it up and say, all right, well, we'll have next year.
Yeah, especially freshmen that are going to the NBA.
Guys like
Jabari, guys
one and dones.
I'm looking at you, Jabari Parker.
Yeah, who just mailed it in.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, Marcus Smart. When we come back, we're going to touch more on the men. I know we kind of started off with the women because, what they've done is just, incredible. I just felt compelled to touch on the women. But when we come back, we're going to do a little recap of UConn's run, talk about the game against Florida, give our thoughts on that, and then give our thoughts about the championship game against Kentucky and what's UConn's future. Where do they go from here? There's basically a dog without a home. They're kind of like a lost dog walking the street.
Yeah.
We'll give our predictions and thoughts on what conference they should go into and where we think they're going to be after this break on All Noise Radio.
When you need a cup, pour some sugar ramen.
Sugar ramen?
Yeah, soup.
Freeze. A call to the library could help her out. Good thing T-Mobile lets her call whenever she wants. Go.
Says here, pour some sugar on me. I'm hot, sticky, sweet.
Mm-hmm.
The most whenever minutes, free long distance and roaming. Only from T-Mobile.
Get more.
All Noise Radio. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
I cannot believe this. This is the best news I've had all week.
And I know I can't live without my radio.
I'm sick to death of your mess and your noise.
Back on the Zuki and Ruggs Show, and we're breaking down last weekend's Final Four down at the Big House in Dallas, Texas.
Hey, did you see who made it to a championship game for the first time in his career? Tony Romo. He was there in person. He finally made it to a championship game.
Zook. Hitting below the belt there. Even below that big cowboy belt with the big buckle. Jerry Jones, though, that was cute with his little pregame hug with Billy Donovan and stuff. I was like, oh, wow. I was worried about the officiating when I saw that.
Yeah, what was that about, huh?
But I guess Jerry Jones has the same luck in college basketball as he does in football. It doesn't help when you get on the field or on the court.
Well, you know Billy Donovan, when he hugged me, probably thought that's the kiss of death. And that was the kiss of death for Billy Donovan and his Florida Gators.
And very cowboy-like. They came out to a big start.
Yeah. They're up 16-4 early.
And I'm like, what is going on here? I know we can compete with this team. Mm-hmm. Something just changed at about the 10 or 11 minute mark to go.
Well, you know what happened, Ruggs, is UConn went to a smaller lineup, and that really changed things for them. Early on, the pick and roll had an adverse effect on Shabazz Napier. He wasn't even able to attempt his shot. He didn't attempt his shot in the first 6.5 minutes of the game. Out of the gates, UConn was just looked really sluggish, to say the very least, my partner.
Yep.
And Kevin Ollie proved to be a great coach, made an adjustment, and you have to. I guess when you're down 16-4 in the Final Four, you got to try something. He did. He went to a smaller lineup, and boy, did it work for UConn. Napier looked a lot more comfortable. DeAndre Daniels started just nailing shots left and right, looking really impressive. I think Ray Allen was proud of him. Ryan Boatwright started contributing, and Shabazz Napier just seemed to relax with the smaller lineup, and it really helped him. And, of course, that defense just phenomenal. Tom Thibodeau must watch that team and just smile. I mean, really.
Because even when they fell behind 16-4, I mean, it took a while for Florida to get those 16 points. It's not like UConn's defense was playing badly. They just could do nothing on the offensive end. Like you said, the lineup change really helped. It got the speed aspect of their game up to high gear. It got that into the focus rather than size, which they were giving up anyway to Florida.
Yes.
So why not exploit your advantages? Mm-hmm. And that's what he did, and it really changed the game. And it had to be disheartening. Florida was 16-4 ahead, and then like in a blink, we're down 21-20 after Nils Gafai got that three-point play, hit the shot, made the free throw, and they're down 21-20 after thoroughly dominating the first 10 or so minutes. That had to have some ominous overtones for the rest of the team and how they felt the rest of the game was going to go. And then I thought it was funny, too, and we'll touch on this when we get into the next game, the Monday night. The pundits, I mean, I don't know what they're watching sometimes. You got 4 or 5 guys on there that watched that first half, and basically one after another went all the reasons why they thought it looked good for Florida and why they thought they would come back. And they were the number 1 team in the country all year long. I don't begrudge them that, but when you go down by 3 at the half, in a half where you couldn't have had them start any worse, and you're down at the half, I don't think that looks promising for you at all. The way the tone of the game had changed, really, I got to give credit to him. The only guy who really thought it was going to stay that way and that UConn was going to win was Grant Hill.
Yeah.
The only guy that said it. Everybody else, Florida.
Let's just get it out, Ruggs, right now. Let's forget. Let's not even be politically correct about it. Most of these guys on television hate UConn. Let's be honest. They're anti-Big East guys. Guys like jerks like Doug Gottlieb and guys like Jay Billis. Yep. Let's stop it. These guys are so anti-UConn, it's not even funny. Meanwhile, they come here to Connecticut and collect a paycheck.
Yeah, you got that right.
But these jerks, and they go out of their way to bash UConn. I'll never forget the first time I heard that jerk, and I'll use the term jerk because that's what you are, Doug Gottlieb. You're a clown. Okay? I heard this jerk, Doug Gottlieb, the first time I ever heard this clown on radio, okay, was when UConn lost to George Mason in 2006, and the guy practically came on and he basically was celebrating on air about he was just waxing poetically about how George Mason was a small Southern team and they had guts, and UConn was a big East, big money team.
And this is a guy that went to Oklahoma State.
Yeah, they had the Big East, big money, but it doesn't mean you have guts. They're a bunch of losers. Biat just went on and on about how much he hated UConn. And I'm saying, this guy is going to work for ESPN? Are you kidding me? So up yours, Doug Gottlieb. Up yours, Jay Billis. Up yours, all you guys. Okay, you all hate UConn. Okay, and somewhere that old troll Billy Packard, somewhere he's crying in his soup. Okay.
Yeah, he never was a big.
No,
fan of ours.
Yeah,
he had some issues with Calhoun, which was kind of the cause of all that.
Well, get in line, Packard, and get over it. Quit your crying, Packard. Everybody has an issue with Jim Calhoun. Even people at UConn had an issue with Jim Calhoun. So shut up. So,
yeah, I mean, you have to be able to objectively break games down when you're doing it as an analyst.
Exactly. And these guys are just so biased, it's not even funny. So, good point, Ruggs. These guys are all, and Grant Hill, I give him a lot of credit. He's a Duke guy, but at least he called it like he saw it. Take it from a guy who was a great player, not a marginal brown-noser like Billis and Gottlieb. Actually, who did a great job of breaking down the games? The NBA guys. I got to give the
I love since they've done that.
Barkley and Kenny Smith broke down the game so eloquently, and they actually were rallying behind UConn. They liked what they saw from UConn, and I think they really were like, wow. Kenny Smith especially was just
very good.
Yeah,
and since they've replaced Kellogg with who's another guy that they can't stand UConn. Since Clark Kellogg's been replaced with Greg Anthony, the coverage is so much better. I
agree. Just been really tremendous job by those guys. Getting back to the game here, though, forgetting about the haters, they're all making excuses for the losers. Let them all have lunch with Billy Donovan and kiss his rear end some more. Going back to the game here, UConn's defense, as Ruggs,
in the second half,
said so eloquently. But even the first half, Ruggs, Florida shot 8 for 23 from the field in the first half. They were 1 for 7 from 3.
Yeah.
So, I mean, UConn's defense from that point, from when they were down 16-4, was just smothering. UConn's up by 10. UConn goes up by 10. And you're thinking, okay, UConn's starting to run away. But Florida, they fight.
Yep. They'd make a run.
Yep. You knew they would, and they did. They cut it to 4, and you're thinking, oh, boy, here we go. Here comes Florida. They started playing, a zone as well. The zone slows down UConn somewhat. There's times when, you play a zone on Napier, he kind of takes a step back and goes, ooh, He kind of observes it for a minute. Florida cut it to 4, as I said. UConn calls a timeout, which was a big timeout. Ollie said, okay, we got to stop this right here. And then again, the hero of the game, a guy, and this was truly a team effort, this UConn Husky team. They didn't have one superstar on their team, Duke. They had a bunch of teams. They had a bunch of guys who played together and really contributed. And DeAndre Daniels on that night was phenomenal. He comes back after the timeout, hits a lay-in, and UConn goes up by 6. But then Prather comes back. He gets an and 1 there for Florida, cuts it to 3, makes it 41-38. After that, though, that's as close as they would come. The defense, again, was just smothering. Then they started hitting their shots, Ruggs. Napier had a big steal at the 7-minute mark. He threw a pass to Boatwright for a lay-in to get it to 47-40. Florida called a timeout, but the timeout was futile. There was Billy Donovan was just delaying the inevitable. From that point forward, UConn's defense was just
They struggled, Florida did, to even really get a decent shot attempt up in the last 7 or 8 minutes of the game.
From that point forward.
There's some ugly shots that they took.
Oh, Wilbekin. I mean, my God, he was throwing up air balls.
Yeah.
Wilbekin was just – it got to the point where Wilbekin, I think, just got so frustrated. He's like, I'm just going to heave shots up. And
I think
my God, it was just
the
horrible.
defense was just in their heads, too. They just
that's what I'm saying.
Assumed that they were going to be there. They tried to alter shots. It just –
Wilbekin was just throwing stuff. It got to the point where Wilbekin was just like, forget it, man. I'm just going to throw crap up against the wall and see what sticks here. And it really was borderline embarrassing, to be honest with you, because he's another guy. Like if I had a casual college basketball fan and I said, hey, well, I would have waxed poetically about Wilbekin too. I would have raved about it. I said, this Wilbekin, he's a good player. And again, the guy would have turned to me and said, really? Wilbekin's a good player? I would have said, sorry, not tonight. But that was because of UConn's defense, man. Really unbelievable. Really, I think, Ruggs, in my opinion, the Michigan State and the Florida game, I think those are 2 of the top 4 victories ever for them.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion.
I mean, and with the Florida game especially, they actually, talking to my wife as we were watching the game, I'm like, they could have won this game by 20.
They easily could have.
I mean, it wasn't. Yeah. And I'm glad they did touch on it at the end of the game. Greg Anthony brought it up and Nance kind of seconded it, that this was no Cinderella. This was no upset last-second shot like they had December 2nd. Napier hits the last-second shot. Stores. I mean, this was a pretty dominant effort. They beat him. They beat him soundly. They beat him handily.
They did.
There was no doubt.
They did. And I could go on about the game, but there really was no drama. Shabazz Napier just with some big steals there, and UConn's defense just caused some turnovers, caused some fast breaks opportunities. Florida just couldn't do anything. As I said, Wilbekin got to the point where it just appeared like he basically had was a nervous breakdown, was just throwing stuff up. Florida tried everything. They even tried a full court press. Didn't work. I mean, nothing worked, and it was an impressive victory, and they went on to the finals, and I think it's a game, getting to the finals here, I think it's a game that I think if you're a Connecticut resident, a UConn fan, you knew UConn was winning the game. I don't want to hear it. I know everyone, again,
we'll get back into it.
You
line up 8 experts, not one.
Pick UConn. Not one of them.
I don't know how you could watch.
I don't know how you could either.
The games coming into that, the dominant efforts against all the teams that they picked, Michigan State and Florida, that one combination of those two teams was winning everybody's brackets, and I picked Florida myself. I'm not going to deny that because going into the tournament, that's how they look. So when I watched UConn dismantle Michigan State and then Florida, I said, the light bulb went on in my head. I said, they're going to beat Kentucky.
Oh, I knew it. I didn't lose.
Not these yo-yos.
No, I don't get it. I don't know how these guys collect paychecks and say they know a lot about college basketball. I don't get it. I'm with you, Ruggs. I think it's just out of pure bias. I really do. I think they knew if you sat down with them off the record and said, hey, guys, who's winning this game? I guarantee they would have looked at you. They would have covered their mic and they would have said, UConn's winning the game. But fact that they have to cater to the South and the SEC,
the blue bloods of
they have
Kentucky,
and all these Southern conferences, they have to cater to them, and so they have to say Kentucky is ridiculous. Just tell the truth, have some dignity, and give UConn their props. And then of course there are the same ones afterwards who they never come back and reconcile their picks and say, wow, we were stupid. No.
I was glad though SportsCenter did show a blurb of all of them picking them.
Yeah.
After they showed the highlights of the game, that was funny. But that wasn't them coming out and saying we were wrong. That was the producers or whoever of the show doing that.
But a Connecticut-based ESPN.
Yeah. Kind of. Sticking it back to them.
Stick it to these guys, these ingrates. What a bunch of ingrates.
They kept bringing up every single one of them said, I think the rebounding is going to be the difference. I like Kentucky. I think the rebounding is going to be the difference. They're too good of a rebounding team. Yeah. They just played two of the top rebounding teams in the country. Yeah. Michigan State and Florida rebounding margin was in the top 5.
They just beat teams with 2 of the most dominant big men on their teams with Young on Florida and Adrian Payne of Michigan State, who I think can be a lottery pick. I love Adrian Payne.
Patrick Young, and again, he had a good game, but it wasn't.
He's a monster. Patrick Young is a monster. Mm-hmm. I mean, like I said to Ruggs on the phone yesterday, we were talking, and I said, Ruggs, I'm telling you, I'm so impressed with this team because if you were in a playground and you took Florida and you put them on one side, and you took UConn, you put them on the other, and you grabbed a bunch of people around the playground and said, okay, guys, these 2 guys are going to play each other. Who do you think's going to win? I guarantee you 9 out of 10 would have pointed to Florida and said, these guys are going to kick these guys' ass. No, it went the other way. And for a bunch of dignitaries, if you will, or a bunch of college basketball gurus, professional experts, please go become weathermen, okay? Go become meteorologists, okay? And for them to say that UConn was going to lose the game based on one aspect, what about UConn's smothering defense, okay? What about their clutch play? Give me a break. These guys, but whatever. You know what? All the prognosticating in the world can't change what happened. The UConn Huskies thoroughly just with their astounding defense, went all the way to the national championship game.
Yeah,
and won
Kentucky did have, they got down. We'll break it down a little. I mean, we did skip the Kentucky-Wisconsin game, which was an exciting
great game.
Could have been obviously the best game of the 3, and we're just kind of glossing over it. But
it was.
Kentucky pulled it out, hit the last second shot.
Aaron Harrison is
who just 3 games in a row hits shot at the end.
If I may, I think Aaron Harrison. I mean, it may take him a couple years in the NBA. I think he's going to be a player.
Yeah.
The guy can shoot. I think he's going to become a hell of a shooter in the NBA. I'm not saying whether he becomes Ray Allen or not remains to be seen, but I think he could be a hell of a shooter for some team.
They got down big time, similar to the way UConn got down to Florida, but UConn was on right from the get-go.
Oh, yes.
They poured it on, and they looked real good right away, got up by as many as 16. And give Kentucky credit, they came back.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I felt that they would. They have 5 possible lottery picks on their starting roster. You're not going to blow that team out. They're gonna make their noise and make their statement. But it seemed, even when they were coming back and it was getting a little tight in the second half, you were worrying a little, they had to do basically heroic things to score.
Yeah.
If you look at every one of their baskets, it was some kind of unbelievable shot, a slam dunk putback, alley-oops, crazy layup, floating shot. They could not get a legitimate good look from the field and knock it down.
Nope.
Primarily for that whole game. I mean, they had to work. Teams do not, and this is what I said last week. I said, you got to watch the field goal percentage defense. Those teams win time in and time out. UConn does not let you shoot well from the outside. Kentucky almost got to the point where they weren't even attempting outside shots.
Yeah.
They just tried to drive everything, throw it up at the basket, see where it landed, see if they could slam it back down.
You're right. That was their they had a defeatist attitude in that regard. They conceded the UConn's perimeter defense, and their defense on the post was just unreal. I've never really seen anything like it. I mean, people want to rave about Virginia's defense, and rightfully so. I was a huge fan of Virginia's defense, and it was really good. I tell you what, UConn's defense is right there with them.
It is, and like I said when we were talking about them, I don't think the reason I think UConn was going to be a tougher matchup to beat Michigan State was UConn can hit it on the other end. Virginia has a lot of struggles knocking stuff down. They don't have any big time. They don't have a Napier who's going to go in there and take a game over, score points. That's what Virginia was lacking. That's why I couldn't see them
winning the whole thing. Right. Well said. And I tell you, where UConn really won this national championship, folks, and it's a statistic that most people think is an afterthought. Why don't you ask John Calipari, who mentioned
he sees him in his sleep,
and mentioned it in his post-game interview outside of the locker room. UConn won this national championship on the free throw line. Okay, to shoot 90% from the free throw line as a team is phenomenal. You don't understand. That eliminates the strategy of hack and take them to the line. Calipari said it himself, and I don't care what anybody says, he's right on the money. He goes, I can't foul there. I can't tell my kids to foul there down by 2 or down by, I can't tell them to foul there because they're going to make both free throws. These guys haven't missed from the line all tournament. Yep. They're going to miss now. He goes, I can't do that. He goes, I had a better shot of trying to get a rebound or a turnover than fouling them and trying to win it on the free throw line. If I do that, I'm going to lose.
Yep.
And that's and he's right on. He would have lost. He would have played right to UConn's hands. That's actually what I was hoping he did. And then, of course, the stupid thing, at the end, which was just, I don't want to call them idiots, but it was borderline idiotic. The last foul by Kentucky, then I started celebrating at that point. UConn kills a lot of time off the clock. They get the ball down low, head fake, big foul by, I think it was Poitras, I think the foul there at the end. He landed on top of one of the UConn guys. I forget who it was. And you knew the game was over at that point. They did it with all aspects of the game. Defense, foul shooting, the most important, big shots, passing the ball, not turning it over, taking care of the basketball. I mean, folks, you want to watch textbook college basketball.
The team's never gone perfect with at least 10 attempts in a national championship game before. Then they were 10 of 10. So
yeah, it's unreal. So proud of them, and really just amazing. Ruggs, I want to ask you. You're a UConn alum. You were there. I'll ask you a couple things as an alum. How proud are you? And another thing, I'll ask you. I said the last segment, but I didn't really let you answer it because I kept blabbering with my big fat mouth. Out of the 4 that we've seen, is this the sweetest one? Is this the best one?
Well, I'll tell you, it's hard to beat the first.
Yeah, that was
first
sweet.
Is always the sweetest, and I was there for that, so that made it a little better. I was
and it's Duke.
on campus, and it was Duke.
And it's Duke, yeah.
So this one definitely, though, of the other 3, was the best. And I think we talked off air about this. It's kind of a program saver, so to speak. The worry when Calhoun left was this is going to be another UNLV with Tarkanian.
Yes.
They're not. It's a coach-built program. They're built on one great coach. He leaves. You don't see the promised land again for years or maybe ever. Even UCLA post-Wooden had a long.
Well, they won a national. Yeah, they had a long drought
until
Jim
they
Herrick.
came back with Jim Herrick. And that was quite a few years later.
Yeah, 95. I think. Yeah, it was almost 20 years later. Yeah, about. Yeah.
So you had a good long stretch between titles there, and UNLV's never been the same. And there's other programs that you can go down the list and say they were built by one great coach, and then when he left, they couldn't follow it up. So Ollie getting this one is going to really help him with the feather in his cap, the recruiting going forward. It's going to help him try to build a team that's going to be able to prosper in the near future. Now, one thing you segued coming into the break, the roadblock, and it's, kind of manufactured by the NCAA, who tends to like to do whatever they can to get in UConn's way, but the conference issue is going to be a big thing because you need a solid conference that recruits know is going to be around and is going to have TV rights, have a good postseason tournament in a good atmosphere. And let's face it, the AAC tournament this year was not. And you had a Louisville UConn playing. It was a high-level game. There's some good teams in that conference. SMU got to the NIT championship. You had Louisville. You had UConn. Memphis won a game in the tournament. Cincinnati, they kind of bottomed out at the end of the year, but they had a solid season.
Yes, they did.
There's good teams in that conference, but it's got a long way to go to build. And a lot of reasons for that. There's not natural geographic rivalries. There's a couple. You got SMU's in Houston. You got Cincinnati, Louisville. You got some, but for the most part, it's not a very well-constructed conference, and it's constantly changing, and it's going to change again even going into next season. So there's a lot of issues to address with that.
I think it's a complete smorgasbord, that friggin' conference. I kind of brought this up on social media yesterday. I kind of, most people didn't think it was a great idea. But what do you think about UConn just becoming independent? You think it's a feasible idea? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of, this way they could kind of just screw the NCAA. They could just control their own university and just, kind of just be like, you know what? You guys don't want us in the conference. You guys want to bury us, and all this. We'll just go independent and just try to land our own TV deal and try to do our own thing. It's kind of an extreme measure on my part. That's the way I am, folks. I am extreme. Gun to my head, if I had to bet the house on it, I go with the ACC. I think it's a logical fit for them.
Well, I think they want to end up there.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not a big fan of it.
Me neither. I know. It's not a great basketball conference, but it will be with them. I mean, you get them and Duke in there with North Carolina and teams like that,
Yeah.
I mean, Florida State, I guess, could be. You never know. Florida State has years where they're good. They have years where they're bad. They kind of come and go. I mean, what do you think? I mean, to me.
Yeah, I did love the fact that other than Notre Dame women, which to me, that's you got to put air quotes around an ACC team.
Yes.
But that's the only ACC team that made either Final Four, which was kind of nice to see that when everything seems to be done to cater to their
weak
needs and their continued growth and more money and more money and more money.
I don't get it, to be honest with you. I don't get it.
And they broke up a league like the Big East for that.
To cater the ACC, I know.
And two former Big East teams.
I know.
And UConn men and women win both titles.
That's why one side of me is like, just screw them. Screw the NCAA. Just go independent. But I don't know how feasible that is.
The only problem with the independence is when you lose that conference tournament, you really have to have great seasons to make the tournament. And believe me, if you let the selection committee decide on an at-large bid for you may be sitting home with 25 wins and not going to the tournament.
Exactly. How the Big Ten chose Rutgers over UConn. I mean, they have to be kicking themselves in the ass. I mean, how foolish of a decision that is. Rutgers? Really? Rutgers?
It's not. I
mean, how
and it's a football
stupid.
decision.
I mean, come on, football.
But Rutgers
they're not even good in football. I saw them live at the Pinstripe Bowl. They suck. They haven't been good since Ray Rice was there.
Well, I think when this all got legs, this whole thing began to be in the incubation stage there. I think that was around that time, and I think they thought that they could get and they want that New York. See, people don't realize when you're not from here, this is the New York market just as much as Jersey.
Absolutely.
And I know UConn's in the northern part of the state, but that even lends more to it because you start to draw the Boston atmosphere.
That's right.
You get that perfect kind of melding of both, and I think that gets underrated, overlooked. People automatically assume you got to go for Rutgers in that situation to draw the New York market to pack. Let's say they because they're talking about bringing the Big Ten tournament to Madison Square Garden. To me, that seems crazy. I mean, I'm sure they'll draw, and every tournament at Madison Square Garden is great. You could have an 8th grade tournament at Madison Square Garden. It's great.
That's the mecca of basketball.
Absolutely.
They'll come out and watch anything. As we saw, they came out and watched friggin' Providence, for crying out loud. They sold out the place.
Providence Creighton was electric.
Providence Creighton, and it was electric, as you said. So, we'll see what happens with UConn. I'm sure they'll land somewhere, or they'll just, we'll see what happens. But congratulations to them. Kevin Ollie, don't look at the NBA. Don't do it. Don't fall for the fool's gold. Don't do it. I've heard people on social media now, maybe Ollie should, don't
I don't
do
think
it.
he's
Don't do it. Don't be silly. Yeah, stay where you are. You got great job security, and it's now a prestigious university with 4 national championships. don't go anywhere. Don't fall for the fool's gold. Ask John Calipari. If you want to go to the NBA, call him and ask him, how that was. Or even ask Rick Pitino, who left a prestigious job at Kentucky to go to the Celtics. Ask him how that went over. So hopefully Kevin Ollie doesn't fall for the fool's gold either. But we got to take a break here. We're overdue on All Noise Radio. When we come back, we'll touch a little bit on some baseball. We had opening day baseball. We'll touch a little bit on that for a few minutes. Talk about some, surprising starts and some disappointing starts for some teams, including the defending world champions who are slow to the gates. I guess they got a little bit of a World Series hangover there. So we're going to get into a little bit of baseball here on All Noise Radio.
Everybody hates car accidents, especially from bad brake pads. So choose Callahan brake pads. They're durable, dependable, and come with an outstanding sales and customer service. Tommy Callahan says,
our new brake pads are really cool.
But if you do think that other brake pads are just as good, just ask our associate what happens when you choose the other guy's brake pads.
You're driving along, and all of a sudden the kids are yelling from the back seat, I gotta go to the bathroom, Daddy. Not now. Truck tire. I can't stop. Help!
Don't set your family on fire. Choose Callahan brake pads.
All Noise Radio.
Not
Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Oh, Piggy can run.
AllNoiseRadio.com. Back on the Zuki and Ruggs Show, and we're talking baseball now. Finally, spring is here. I think for good. I don't think there's any snowstorms in the future. You never can feel totally safe in this area.
Oh, we're getting breaking weather over here. Hold on. Now, yeah, I know exactly.
Finally, we can talk about opening day.
Wow, what a miracle! Yeah, it's finally upon us, people, and I'm actually quite excited about it. I remember I was sitting home actually with bronchitis watching Mets opening day, and it looked great for the most part. I was like, oh, wow, the Mets looking good, about to get another opening day win, and then not so much. The Mets bullpen is fantastic. A couple of big stories, coming up, like that came through so far after the first week and a half of the season. The big one, obviously, is the stupidity of Josh Hamilton. The guy was off to the best start of his career, folks. Josh Hamilton was hitting the cover off the ball. Fantasy owners everywhere were raving about Josh Hamilton. You got him on the cheap. The Angels were, thrilled. And we said it here actually, back like I think in November or something. Yeah. We were talking about baseball and, one of my clips, if you hear one of the intros from our older shows a few months ago, you hear me talking about the Angels, you hear me saying, if Pujols gets healthy, if Hamilton gets healthy, boom, you never know. And it looked that way. Josh Hamilton certainly looked healthy, and he was just on his way to a tremendous season, it looked like. And then he does something that was drilled into my psyche at 5 years old. I remember my brother and one of my old coaches said, George, don't you ever, 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 ever slide into first base because you will get hurt. And I was a chubby kid anyway. I wasn't exactly the most coordinated kid anyway. Dexterity was not my, DNA at a young age. And, and to see Josh Hamilton slide into first base and tear a ligament in his thumb and be out for 6 to 8 weeks, And that is a serious. That's going to linger. Even if he comes back in June, he's not going to be the same hitter with that thumb. Oh. He's not. You're going to lose the power. Now you've got to recover from another injury. The mental, drain of having to come back from another injury. I mean, just a real foolish, stupid play.
Run through the bag.
Just so stupid. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, it irks me. And if I was Arte Moreno, I would be I would go into a hospital room and I would have flipped out on him. I'm like, I'm paying you all this money and you slide into first. And I'm telling you, I said this with my friends, we're big baseball guys. And I'm not a big rules guy. I'm really not. I don't like, making new laws or making new rules, making reactionary new rules, based on reaction because one thing happened. But I am in favor. I think Joe Torre and Bud Selig, if it's the last thing you do, Bud, you guys should really think about making just illegalizing sliding into first base. I really do. Just for the players' protection. Just make it just make it illegal. You're already making everything else illegal. Just make that illegal too. Say, you know what? If you slide into first, you're out automatically. You're out no matter what. I don't care if you beat the ball by 20 feet. You're out. You slide into first, you're out. You're out. Just make it a rule so these guys don't get hurt. And call the Josh Hamilton rule. Screw it. It's just ridiculous. There's no reason for these guys to be doing that. And I know it's silly that we have to sit here and reprimand 35-year-old men and tell them don't slide into first base now. I know it's silly, but unfortunately we have to sometimes because these guys have the mental capacity of 5-year-olds. Look at Josh Hamilton. So just real silly. Hopefully, again, I'm not a fan of doing this, but unfortunately sometimes you have to because these guys are worth too much money. Look at Josh Hamilton. The guy's got a $100 million plus contract, and poor Arte Moreno's got to cut this guy checks because this idiot slides into first base. I shouldn't say poor Arte Moreno, but you know what I mean. They have to. He's not poor, but they got to cut this idiot checks because he slides into first base like a ditity, and he's breaking his thumb. What an idiot! So anyway, let's get off of Josh Hamilton. Enough. I feel my IQ points. I can smell my brain cells burning talking about this dummy. But so good luck to the Angels. I feel bad if it's a major blow to the Angels who are looking to have a comeback season to compete in the AL West. They'll have to do without Josh Hamilton. Another big story, obviously, was the big international signing by the New York Yankees. Ruggs. We saw him last night. He was thoroughly impressive. I know you give
He looked good.
You gave 3 runs, but please, it was on one shot. 10 Ks, 7 innings, 3 runs. Didn't get the win, but nevertheless, what are your thoughts on? Now I sat here, and when the Yankees signed him, and I thought he would be just as good as Yu Darvish, and in my opinion, he's looking as so. What are your thoughts on Tanaka there, Ruggies?
Well, until the hitters figure out that splitter too, I mean that's going to be tough. It's nasty.
Yeah, that's one thing we covered when we first were breaking down Tanaka. When he signed with the Yankees was that splitter. It's unbelievable.
And we mentioned they didn't bring him here to be a number 3 or a number 4 guy. That's
what he is. That's another thing I want to ask you, Ruggs. To me, when I heard the announcement that he was going to be the 4 starter, I thought it was stupid, ridiculous. Yeah. And Joe Girardi's a smart guy. I like Girardi, but I thought it was boneheaded to make him the 4 starter. What are your thoughts on that? I was shocked.
That could definitely be something that is up for change coming forward. But
I think so. I think after the All-Star break, you're going to see Tanaka. I think you're going to see Tanaka get that first start after the All-Star break, no doubt. And he's going to be the number 1 from that point forward. I mean, I was shocked but nevertheless, whatever. I guess out of respect to CeCe, I guess they maybe wanted to give, and to fairness, he never pitched in America before then, but still, he's just so good. This is not some marginal pitcher in Japan now. This guy was like, he was putting up Dwight Gooden like 1985 type numbers.
Yep.
What Dwight Gooden was doing when he first got called up. So, really impressed with Tanaka, and if he keeps pitching like that, he'll keep the Yankees in it. Right now the Yankees are 4-5, but they're not too many bad teams in the AL right now. That I see a couple 3 and 6s, but nothing crazy right now. But still very early. Looking over the NL, you got a team from 2 years ago that probably should have won the World or gone to the World Series. That really stupidly what they did with the Strasburg rules when they shut him down and really cost them, I think, the pennant in 2012. But they're flying right now. That's the Washington Nationals sitting there at 7-2 as we sit here today. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, a lot of people had them as a sleeper pick coming into this year because they had lowered the expectations a little bit, maybe with last year, a little bit disappointing. So sometimes that's the best way to jump right back into is when people have their guard down against you a little, and they came out and I know it's your Mets, but man, they handed it to them in those first 3 games.
Yeah, they look good. Then they're just so well balanced, from top to bottom. I know they suffered an injury there with Wilson Ramos at catcher, but they're so deep they can probably just bounce back. The Mets' Bobby Parnell's out for the year with Tommy John. He didn't look right on opening day, and just another typical example of the Mets.
They just snake bitten with things.
Oh my God!
Feel bad for him.
Yeah, and it's no preparation, no foresight. They never really went out and got a backup closer, a big 8th inning guy to back him up. They relied so much on Parnell, and now a weekend he's done for the year, and now they're sitting there, with their pants down around their ankles. Yep. Typical Mets.
And the Yanks lose their closer. Also.
Yeah, but I think it'll be. I think it's a minor
short
thing.
term, but
I think Robertson's gonna be okay. It's a little groin tweak. I think he threw from flat ground today.
Yeah.
Or yesterday, so I think Robertson's gonna be okay. From reports I'm reading that he should be back within the 15 days. Some really minor thing, more of a precautionary DL trip. So Nothing to be overly concerned there with David Robertson. Let's do a little prognostication there, Ruggies. What do you think? Let's, a little preseason season picks. What are your World Series picks, if you can make some? I mean, of course, a lot of things could change with injuries, but we won't hold you to it. Today, what do you think?
This is going to sound boring, but I still think the Cardinals in the NL.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. They have a great team. I mean,
they're one of those teams that I'm not in love with them. They're the Spurs.
Yeah, they're so good.
Nothing really just excites you, but man, they're so consistent.
They're so good. They're so deep too. They're just
and
deep.
like you know this better than anybody. You're about as much of a guru as there is in the farm systems. You just have in the past just gone on and on about how great their farm system is and how well it's run, and it pays dividends.
Yeah, you're seeing that with Colton Wong now, and you're going to see that. I don't know if it's going to be this year, but eventually you're going to see Oscar Taveras. Carlos Martinez is another one. I mean, they've got a lot of good guys, man. And you're seeing them now, though. Matt Adams was one. You're seeing him. Rosenthal was one. You obviously seeing him. Shelby Miller. A lot of those guys came up last year and 2 years ago, but they still got some aces in the farm.
Yeah. The AL is a tougher pick, and I'm leaning Detroit.
Detroit? Yeah, they got a great team.
I like their staff, but they still worry me with the bullpen. That's what got them last year.
Joe Nathan's been a little shaky thus far.
If they lock that down, I like them. Obviously, Boston's always going to be a factor.
Boston's still pretty good.
Yeah, they're off to a 4-5 start, like you said off air, but they it's so early in the season they can get rolling.
Oh yeah.
To me, those are the two teams that really kind of jump out in front. And I'm leaning Detroit, and I think this might be the year that St. Louis actually gets to raise the trophy.
There you go. Wow.
Yeah. If they play Boston, though, they'll probably lose because they don't match up well against them.
They always do,
as we've seen.
Yeah, right.
But if they can get Detroit, I think they got a good shot.
Wow, that's a good pick, Ruggs. I like that, man. I like that. St. Louis is a hell of a pick. They're a safe pick, and they're probably the best pick. I mean, you just look at their lineup from top to bottom. I mean, I don't see a weakness in their team at all. Even their bullpen, with even guys like Kevin Segrist, their bullpen. I mean, Trevor Rosenthal, I think, is another guy that can just be a dominant closer in this league, and not a bad pick at all. Hard for me to even disagree with you on St. Louis. I'm going to echo that. I'm going to go St. Louis. I do like Washington. The thing that scares me is, injuries seem to always bother that team. They always seem to get bitten by injuries. The Dodgers are really good too. The thing that scares me is Kershaw. Is that back? Did the Dodgers throw $215 million at a guy with a bad back? And that's not good.
Sometimes their hitting just kind of goes into coma mode when they need it. It just kind of disappears on them.
Yeah, we saw Game 6 last year in the NLCS. Yeah, they just didn't even show up. It's like, okay, the game started, guys, but season's on the line. I love the Dodgers, but I just don't think they have that. They have enough to get over the hump. Just like St. Louis, do everything so well. And in looking in the AL, you look at these teams, and it's kind of the same story. You can see some teams that are can make some strides. The Angels were one of them to me, but this Hamilton injury is just so disheartening to even try to get behind them and rally them and say, okay, they can win the pennant. I just don't think they can. With Hamilton being down, unless he comes back and he is good. But I wouldn't bank on it. I don't want to copy with Detroit, and I'm scared of Detroit too. I'm going to go with Boston again. I just really think Boston still has the best team. I love Oakland. I just don't. Same thing.
I thought about taking Oakland.
I just don't think they have enough. Like when they go against Detroit, they just don't have enough to get over the hump. Could they finally do so? Maybe, but I just don't think they have. I love Sonny Gray. I love their young pitching. But their offense, it's like they're one guy short on that offense. I love Brandon Moss. I love some of those guys in the team. They're gritty. Sounds crazy, but I'm going to go with a rematch right now of last year's World Series. I know it doesn't sound too exciting, but I think they're still the two best teams in baseball. But it wouldn't surprise me if it ended up being Washington winning the NL or the Dodgers, team like that. So we'll see, but it's exciting, man. Baseball's here. It's a long season. We'll cover some things as they come. Injuries, We'll follow some teams that are hot, as they come along, and see if there's any surprising teams that come up, and and try to make a run to this thing. There's always a team, it seems like, especially now with this wild card format with the two wild card teams. Yeah, there's always seems to be a team to come up and like last year's Cleveland team. No one really saw them coming last year, and they came up and they they made it to the wild card. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Is it all the time we have, Ruggs, or what?
It is.
Oh,
we're going to
man.
have to wrap it up. It flies by when you're having fun.
It sure does. Well, great job, partner.
Thank you.
You did a great job. And, next week we're going to get into the playoffs are coming. We're going to get into hockey. We didn't even touch on that today. Real quick, want to throw a quick shout out to my Detroit Red Wings who clinched a playoff berth last night in Pittsburgh on a last-minute goal.
Nice.
They go into the playoffs for the 23rd consecutive season. That's it. Good job, partner.
Good night, everyone.
All Noise Radio.
Like Flavor said, that's how these songs kill the noise.
Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. The noise you can ignore.
Pay attention!
All Noise Radio. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
No, Kelly Clarkson!
Our music is awesome.